Premier Brad Wall has been touring around Asia, but he's come back to Canada, and he didn't go to Saskatchewan. He came here to Ottawa. Why? To bring a message you need to hear, that the rest of the country needs to hear, about jobs, prosperity, and more. Enjoy. So, Premier, I've been saying for the last few years, I'd go to the early morning StatsCan job releases. Well, it's still very dark in Saskatchewan, and it's still very dark Ottawa time, and I'm in the lockup, and all during the recession, Saskatchewan unemployment lower than almost everywhere in Canada. You'd battle it out with Alberta. Here at 4.3% right now. I've been telling people, move to Saskatchewan for the jobs. How much of that is the fact that you've been willing to embrace resource extraction, development, all of this?
It's a big part of it. Our economy is diversifying. It's interesting, a couple of months ago when those same StatsCan numbers came out, we had shed some natural resource sector jobs, but made up for them in trade-related jobs, which will be related to the resource sector.
Yep.
In manufacturing, a lot of manufacturing is about short-line implements in agriculture and resource-based manufacturing, but also in innovation. So we are diversifying, but the diversification, and by the way, that month we still had net growth, even though we shed a few. So it's an indicator then that natural resources are important as a primary producer of jobs, but on the strength of a strong resource sector, you can diversify manufacturing, trade, innovation, and create the diversified jobs that we all want for the Canadian economy, and certainly we want for the province.
So what would you say if you're sitting around the table with the other premiers and you've got places like Quebec and PEI and Nova Scotia that are nervous about it? They hear the protest, oh, fracking's bad, or we don't want to get into oil. Right. What would your advice be to the premiers that are wondering what to do?
I don't think we as governments finish the sentence well enough, especially sort of free enterprise, market-oriented governments, or those of us that are trying to be that. And what I mean by that is we're good at the first part of the sentence. We want to increase production of natural resources because it'll contribute to the GDP. That's not the end of the sentence. Or even to create jobs, also not the end of the sentence. We have to start finishing that sentence with quality of life. I want to have a strong economy in Saskatchewan so that we have a broader tax base, so that we can pay off the debt for future generations, so that maybe we can actually increase support for people the most vulnerable among us, who have intellectual disabilities, through CBO partnerships. We've tried to do these things, by the way. I'd like to do more surgeries in Saskatchewan to reduce the wait times. We're using private clinics to do it, but that still takes some resources. So that's the end of the sentence. You want quicker surgery, you want less debt for the future, you want the virtuous cycle of a growing economy.
You want jobs.
And you want jobs.
I mean,
and companies can help with this in those provinces that you've referenced, Brian. I think that companies can say, here's the impact. Here's how many jobs that's coming to your community, and then we all can politicians perhaps can step in and say, and this is what that translates to. I think that would help. We got to finish the sentence.
What's it been like? Because I know when you started talking about more than 1 million people in Saskatchewan, well, there wouldn't be more than 1 million people if you didn't have jobs, if you didn't have to diversify. So how does that connect to what you're talking about, quality of life and expansion of services?
More taxpayers paying at a lower rate, we hope, and we have had historic tax reductions in the province, but the base is wider, and so we have made dramatic improvements in the lives of people with intellectual disabilities. We inherited from a social democratic government a wait list of people with intellectual disabilities wanting a home, a group home, of 440 people in the province of Saskatchewan. We assigned $40 million over a number of years and eliminated it. Now, it's an ongoing process. We're going to keep up with it, but that original list is gone. It took a tax base to do it, and that's what we have to say to those who typically those who oppose natural resources would be those who would also want to do some of these social things that speak to quality of life. They go hand in hand.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to get to your trade mission to China, but first, quickly on. It's really a national issue. A lot of people just associate it with Alberta, the Keystone Pipeline. Yeah. It's more than Alberta. It's what are your thoughts on it? Because I've become much more pessimistic as I hear President Obama speak more about it.
You and I both. The pipelines are important. Because it takes our oil to Tidewater, and until that happens to the fullest extent that's possible, we will be selling Canadians oil, because they own the resource, at a discount. Basically, the discount between Brent price, which is the discount shrunk, but there's still a discount. Brent in West Texas. In August, it was costing our Treasury, averaged out over the year, $300 million a year because the discount was bigger, the spread, and $2.5 billion to industry. So we all have a stake in Keystone in the Canadian economy, and also increases pipeline capacity, and that's a big issue for us in Saskatchewan. So you're right, not oil, not Saskatchewan oil in the pipeline, but for those reasons important to us in Canada. And I'm also pessimistic. I think we always knew the president was having environmental challenges with this. I wouldn't necessarily think, I don't think they're there, but fair enough.
He's having that with his base.
Sure, with the base. But I thought the economic argument was basically won, because you had trade unions saying we want Keystone for the jobs. Trade union south of the border.
The ones that backed President Obama.
Right.
Yeah.
So I thought the economic argument had been solved at least. And then he had that interview with the New York Times and basically discounted the jobs. So that's a couple hundred jobs. It's not a big economic deal.
Yeah.
My optimism barometer changed that day.
Okay, so we've got to look for alternatives. That's part of why you were in Asia, but you were also there. It is an interesting stat I got from your office, is barley. I mean, I never think of, I know barley's grown in Saskatchewan. I know it's a major commodity in Canada, but 1/3 of the barley used in Japanese beer comes from Saskatchewan.
It's
is that right?
That's around 20%.
20%.
A huge number. It's a beer drinking country. So Sapporo and Asahi, two of the top labels, use. In fact, we through our crop development center, and this is why increasingly agriculture is important, and our farmers, we're now growing something called Polar Star barley, which is basically customized for them, for the malting barley they want. By the way, I don't think the yields are quite what farmers would like them to be, so we're going to do some more research on behalf of the companies. In a post-wheat board environment, though barley was off-board, in a post-wheat board environment, by the way, we're going to have greater flexibility to customize products, agriculture products, to Asia or anywhere else.
What the bakers want, what the pasta makers want, what anybody wants.
Yeah.
So how big a, we know about potash, that was a big takeover issue a while ago. How important is agriculture to the Saskatchewan economy still? And then put it in terms that people can get, like a lot of Japanese beer.
Well, I
like Sapporo. It's not bad.
Well, in the case of Japan, that's a big country with a lot of people. 50% of their canola seeds they crush into cooking oil, very popular cooking oil over there, comes from Saskatchewan farmers. 80% of the durum for all those good noodles come from Saskatchewan farmers. This is just Saskatchewan stats. In Asia, the ASEAN region we talked about, Southeast Asia, 30% of all their Canadian imports come from our province. It's food and fuel and fertilizer, but it means literally thousands of jobs in agriculture. How
much would a free trade deal mean for you?
It's huge. So if we like the free trade deal with the European Union, and I think we do, think about this: 550 million population increase by 2025 in Asia, declining population by that date in Europe. GDP growth in Asia twice as fast as the European Union forecast out to 2018. So if you like that one, let's focus on getting at least one deal in Asia.
And then that opens the door to the rest.
It does. The Feds are working on, to their credit, they're working on Japan and Korea.
Okay. We'll keep watching for it. Premier Wall, thanks so much.
Good to be here.